And we continue here at the Sao Paulo Forum in Caracas, Venezuela, the 25th Sao Paulo Forum. And in this special from Caracas, we are sharing thoughts about the most important news on the left, but also on the world, and how are these movements meeting here in Caracas to see, to project what are the next steps in the future of the region, left movement and progressive movements. And now, to continue talking about these ideas, we have with us Julio Muriente, who is Puerto Rican and who will share with us these ideas. Welcome, Julio.
Gracias.
Julio, Puerto Rico is today the most important island of the Caribbean because of what is going on there. We've seen recently the results of the people coming together and fighting for the same cause. What is the importance of the Puerto Rican people finally uniting as one?
Precisely, the 25th of July, the 121st anniversary of the military intervention of the United States in Puerto Rico is celebrated. 67 years have passed since the creation of the free social state. Previously, we had been a Spanish colony during 405 years. It means this has been a colonialism's life. During colonialism, the sense of dignity is supposed to be broken. The sense of ethic or moral, of self-esteem, and the sense of submission is cultivated, the subjection, the collective helplessness. Nevertheless, in Puerto Rico, a patriotic national sense has flourished, and a deep pride has flourished as a Caribbean and Latin American people. The country has faced, during many years, a very critical situation: the collapse of a political model established by United States, the free social state, the collapse of an economy imposed by United States, a model of industrial enclave depending on foreign investment, the direct and one-sided intervention of the American Congress to control finances for the payment of an extraordinary debt about more than $70,000 million that have driven the political and economic model of the free social state to be declared in failure. The Congress is not for helping Puerto Rico, but worried rather for paying to creditors from Wall Street or the vulture funds. In the middle of that situation, the country is hit by two hurricanes, and the destruction of that infrastructure that seemed to come from the first world, but really it was so vulnerable that a hurricane devastated everything. That allows us to see in all its severity the economical and human reality. The snubbed received by United States government, specifically the Trump administration, after the passage of all these hurricanes, all that has been built up in the Puerto Rican awareness, very deep resentments, a generalized annoyance, an energy which seemed to be out of cause, but it was there, being intensified.
Y la gota que colma la copa viene a suceder hace apenas varias semanas.
We have to explain this because it's not only that everything that was happening in Puerto Rico was bigger than what actually was discovered just a few weeks ago.
Claro, todo lo que
Of course, all I try to describe is the last straw. What happened in the following days could be seen as the last straw. But for that, there must be a lot of events involved. And precisely as I tell you, last weeks, the FBI from the United States arrested two public workers belonging to the Puerto Rican government, the ex-educational secretary and the high-level public worker of the health sector for corruption, for bad management of $1 million, that paradoxically were assigned by the own government of the United States. That logically created a tense situation in our people. Corruption shudders above all when it's about so sensitive areas such as education and health. In the middle of that debate, and the announce that more arrests were coming on, the colonialist and annexationist government seemed to be collapsed due to federals that are, in the most of the cases, who put and take governments away here in Puerto Rico. In the middle of all that, some messages come to light about what are called as chat in English, allegedly confidential, but it doesn't mean less perverse, between the governor and some of his most closer followers. Apparently, one of the ex-public workers who had been expelled from the government in a kind of revenge, revealed almost 1,000 pages about conversations filled with perverse attacks against the women, children, political opposition, hurricane victims, passed away people, many rudeness, many attacks and insults, dirt that allow people firstly afflicted to see the real nature of the perverse personality of that governor who wanted to project himself as an unscathed person, someone pure of heart, a good father, a model young, and that shaked the country.
And that shake that the country suffered, we've seen in these past days, that ended up with him resigning, and because of an achievement of the people.
Yes.
What have taken so long for the Puerto Ricans to finally get together and raise their voices as one?
Sucede lo mismo que
It happens the same than in a volcano zone.
todos quizás sepamos
Maybe a volcano zone is known by all of us,
pasan siglos
but hundreds of years go by before eruption.
y uno puede preguntarse
And maybe
si es zona de
we
volcanes,
could ask if is a volcano zone there is no eruption weekly or monthly.
así con las sociedades.
It happens kind of the same with societies. They mass and mass.
Además, en una sociedad
Also in a colonial society,
donde se nos educa desde
where we are educated since our birth about we don't have the power or the prerogative, we cannot simply we're tried to be inhibited as a society.
esto que
For that reason, this event constitutes an extraordinary process of cultural and human emancipation.
humana. A mí
What surprised and excited me the most about all of this,
es que haya
it
sido
has been an attack to dignity,
a la
moral,
corrupción de la
and
dignidad,
ethical
de la ética
corruption.
y de la moral. No ya
Not only dollar corruption, which by itself is a reason enough for outrage, the attack to humanity of all of us. Of women were called prostitutes, of men who received the most terrible insults of poor people, unwell people, an unpronounceable list of titles and insults.
And after these results that the people have achieved, what comes next?
Bueno, ahí
Because
está.
now we are at the Sao Paulo Forum, and for years, for the liberation of Puerto Rico, that it finally frees from that colonialism, and also the need to end those, the reclamation presented at the Decolonization Committee in United Nations, said in all different spaces of international consultation, is being asked that Puerto Rico's colonial state is finished. What comes next? What have the people of Puerto Rico achieved with this, and what can they achieve?
Por eso,
For that, it is important that the analysis about what happened these last 12 days that ended with the forced renunciation of the governor scheduled for this next August the 8th, that's why the importance of having present the president. That's why it is important to avoid seeing the event of the renunciation as the only issue, the only one. No. As I told before, this is the last straw. I could say that it is the visible tip of the iceberg. If the captain, the Titanic, instead of being attentive at the tip of the iceberg, had recognized that behind the sea there was a big mass which finally ended sinking the Titanic, well, That big mass, in the case of Puerto Rico, are the presidents I have already described. So, it is not mainly about the change of a public worker. In fact, if we resigned ourselves with it, we couldn't achieve a lot. Because probably the next in power would be worse than the one who left. So, we have to emerge what is in itself important without any doubt. We have to make it emerge and recognize that we are in a social process that has to do with the immediate future the governor demands, chats, among others, but it has to do with the complaints of the Puerto Rican people in order to make Puerto Rico be able to forge a superior society in which happiness, respect, and dignity are elements that define the society. That is the great task. How couldn't I leave it here? Without any doubt, there must be some people happy with it. There must be others who will insist that everything is finished because he's gone. But no. Here has just begun the introduction of this phase. In the history of our country must begin a new high-level chapter of social fight that cannot be told that it will precipitate a radical transformation of the society in short term. But it certainly supposes a quality jump in the comprehension of the Puerto Rican citizenship and a bigger approach to the comprehension of the real nature of problems. The nature of problems is not someone else's fault, neither the individual, but the ideas, proposals, systems, the relationship with the United States, the indignity presented in that relationship.
In that relation, we have to also keep in mind and always remember that Bolívar said that the independence of Latin America wouldn't be entire until the islands that were under colonialism were free. We still see that Puerto Rico continues to be under colonialism, but also there was other thinker, also a fighter, José Martí, who fought for the Cuba's liberation and also for Puerto Rico. And he also said that as Bolívar, the freedom of Latin America wouldn't be complete if Puerto Rico wasn't free from those colonial chains. Today, 121 years after that invasion to Puerto Rico by North United States, and in the rise of this social fight, how the left movements in Puerto Rico are being seen, and how is Puerto Rico defending its will, its right to be free and not colonized in this Sao Paulo Forum?
First of all, we have always said that the independence of Puerto Rico is an unfinished task in the agenda of the liberator Simón Bolívar. In the Panama Host Congress in the year 1826 that was frustrated by the miserly interest of many people in the agenda of that Congress, the third issue was the organization of a naval expedition to give independence what remained of the Spanish Empire in America, Cuba and Puerto Rico. After decades, when the Cuban preacher José Martí founded the Cuban Revolutionary Party, and I invite the companion viewer to read about the constitutive document of that organization. In their first article, it is said that the Cuban Revolutionary Party is founded to reach the independence of Cuba and assist in the independence of Puerto Rico. And there was a Puerto Rico section in the Cuban Revolutionary Party, and it wasn't a coincidence. The Cuban and Puerto Rican flags are the same with inverted colors. So we, men and women of the 21st century, are at most humble followers of the Bolivarianism and Martianism. We are Bolivarians and Martians in the 21st century, trying to make reality those dreams, those utopias. From the national and international left, we have an enormous responsibility. We, the Puerto Rican independists, have the responsibility of contributing that these processes reach their biggest dimension, going to the heart of the contradiction, avoiding remaining on the surface, being in the best sense of the word, radicals, revolutionaries, because that is a great virtue, understanding completely the real nature of contradictions, and in our cases, as I said and I insist, the real nature of contradictions aren't corrupted governors. That corrupted governor is the circumstance that has been able to precipitate an awareness rising that has allowed us to see that beyond the corruption of that undesirable person, there are problems even bigger that have to do with the destiny of the country regarding economic and social issues. Why? Because reaching the objectives that, after all, must be the objective of all the people worldwide, being happy and worthy. For that reason, I, as a Puerto Rican, Caribbean, and Latin American, when I see that my people take the streets as never before, simply with the flag of dignity that is the tricolor flag in the nation, the unique homeland we have, I feel deeply proud and satisfied, but also I feel motivated to continue forward, to make this process deep, to reach, from the perspective of the independentist movement, the great goal, which is the decolonization, the self-determination, and the national independence.
And that's in fact one of the topics that the Sao Paulo Forum has been defending in these 25 years.
Exactly. The Sao Paulo Forum is an expression typically Bolivarian of the Caribbean and Latin American unity. As a great goal, the Forum is a historical follower of Bolivar. And if Bolivar has in his agenda as a main issue the Puerto Rico's cause, well, it is expected that the Forum reproduces and is loyal to that command. For that reason, the Sao Paulo Forum is a firm and unconditional ally of the self-determination and independentist cause of Puerto Rico. It is an organization that we have been linked almost since its foundation. The Puerto Rican independentist movement, represented by many of its organizations, takes part in what is known as the Forum Work Group, which is the management. And we have achieved relevant advances in the raising of the awareness of our Latin American and Caribbean brothers about the colonialism issue that in the most of the times is considered as oriented, got over as an issue of the 29th century.
But it's very actual.
Of course, it is not only current, but even as our sisters and brothers from our region say, any of them could be indifferent about the destiny of the controlled peoples within colonialism. But they must know those colonies in the most of the cases are used to attack the independence of their countries, so the end of colonialism everywhere must be of their interest to guarantee their freedom. Venezuela specifically is very aware about what I'm telling now. The Bolivarian Venezuela has suffered the consequences of attacks, threats from colonies, as for example, Aruba, Bonaire, Curaçao, from positions like Puerto Rico, where operatives are planned right now, and that governor who renounced was an accomplice of the operatives against the Bolivarian Venezuela. That during these last months, part of their hypocrisy was pretending to emerge as a pawn in the North American chess against Venezuela.
So much stories to keep telling, Julio, but we are running out of time.
Don't worry, it was a pleasure.
Thank you very
Muchas
much.
gracias.
Thank you very much. And like this, we come to the end of this from Caracas, and we've been sharing thoughts of what's been taking place here in this Sao Paulo Forum, this 25th edition of the Sao Paulo Forum. Thank you for being with us.